Good morning, everybody. It's Tom Christie back in the carving shop. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, and this will be session 5 of carving a Drake Spectacled Eider. And between the last video and now, I did do a little light sanding around the eyes that we installed just to get those smoothed out. Not much sanding required at all because of that epoxy sculpt. And I did get the neck joint finished up with some light sanding. Today I do want to add a couple of additional details. We'll do a little bit of feather splitting on the side pockets. That's totally up to you if you want to add that to that kind of detail to your own bird. I also decided to put some feather covert, tail covert bumps here, and maybe a few splits in those feathers, and that'll finish it up. Then we can sand the bottom, get it branded, sealed, primed, and ready for paint. So we're getting close to the finish line. If you're enjoying my channel, please hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and that helps me out as I continue to add content to this how-to YouTube channel, really meant to help promote decoy carving. Domestically and internationally, I'm really encouraged with the feedback I'm getting from people all over the world that are tuning into the channel. That's exciting to me, and it's all about the waterfowl. So let's get going. Okay, I'm going to use this bullet-nosed ruby bit, and I've penciled in the coverts that I want to carve in. Just kind of a subtle indication of covert. So I'm using the tip of that ruby bit to outline the covert feathers. And this is similar to the other carving that we've done. I normally do an outline to dig a little bit of a trench and then start sculpting the feathers to make them look rounded and soft. Including that center covert feather. Now I'm going in and taking material down. Unfortunately, my hand is in the way there. Maybe we can get a better view here. So you can see I'm removing material on the next covert feather so that we can create a little bit of a bump on each of the coverts. And I'll speed this up because I just want to give you a feel for what I'm doing, and then we can watch this in a quicker manner. So I'm just working each one of those covert feathers and creating a sculpted shape. They're rounded at the tip, and I just want a subtle indication back here. So I'll skip through the rest of this piece of video. And as usual, once the carving is done, I go to the sanding drum, and now I'm going to smooth everything out. And also use the edge of that sanding drum to kind of continue to sculpt those feathers so that there's enough definition there so you can see them, but not so much so that it's deep and looks awkward. This is all going to be black on black feathers back here, so having a little bit of definition to these coverts will add to the look when we're done with the painting. Once I do a little bit of work, I like to repencil just to keep the guidelines in front of me, and it also helps you see if you're cleaning up enough. The pencil lines kind of show any flaws that need to be addressed. So I do that a lot. You can see I'm just working each one of those until I'm satisfied with the look. Once those are ready to go, I'm going to use this little 1/8 inch diameter cylindrical ruby bit and go in and just put a few splits in the feathers. And I don't want to overdo this, but just a little indication of some feather structure. And this will complement the paint that I'm going to put on top of it, which will also include some feather splits. But these splits tend to catch shadows, particularly in a black on black situation. It's nice to have a little structure to the feathers to go along with the paint. So I'll speed through this, speeding up the video, and you can see I'm putting a few splits in both directions. And I find that easier to do by turning the bird around and doing the arc in the opposite direction. So just a view of that. You can see those splits are kind of catching the light. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the side pocket feather groups, and just, I'm not going to make these very deep. I just want them to be soft looking, but just put a little bit of interest, and again, some splits that will catch light and shadow to complement and go along with the painting that I plan to do on these black side pockets. I'm choosing not to do any feather structure on the back and the scapulars. I'm going to do that with paint, but I think on these side pockets I'm trying to convey softness, and a combination of carved splits and painted splits really works nicely. Now I'm switching over to a little smaller diameter ruby bit. This is a cylinder again, and I'm going to use that to put just a few splits in the tail feathers. And the smaller diameter gives me a little more control. These need to be relatively tight. And again, this will complement the paint that I plan to put around these carved splits. But it just opens up the tail feathers a little bit more, and on this particular bird, I want to put a few carved splits in. You can see maybe 1, 2, 3 at the most on each of the tail feathers in kind of an arc shape, following the flow of the feather barbs around the quills. See if I can give you a better view. I'm going to knock off the loose stuff here and see if I can get a view of that for you there. Throw in a few shadows with those splits in the tail feathers. That's about all I want to do back there. Now I'm going to go back with some 320 grit, very fine sandpaper. Fold that up into a square where I can get a good edge, and use that to go into these splits and sand the splits just to soften them, so there are no ragged edges on any of the splits, and just softens the look overall so that we don't have any hard lines. I want those splits to be very subtle, and so I'll just go through the entire bird like this, doing some sanding of those splits to soften everything. And then give the general bird a good fine sanding. Just continuing to finish sand the bird and to address any flaws that you see as you look over the final carving. Now I'm going to use my trusty old belt sander to finish the bottom of the decoy. The Tupelo is normally a little rough, and I did leave about 1/8 of an inch in the pattern for this purpose. Take off about 1/8 inch of material roughly to get the bottom nice and smooth. And normally it takes a couple of attempts, and there's quite a bit of pressure I'm putting on the bird, so you got to hang on tight. There, that looks nice and smooth. All right. Final step before sealing the bird, getting it ready to paint, branding. Always look forward to this because it means decoy's done. Carving anyway. Now I'm going to seal the bird, and I use Deft semi-gloss and just build up about 4 to 5 layers and letting the material dry between coats, and just seal up the wood and get it ready for priming and painting. Now I've got the bottom of the decoy masked off because I like to keep the natural wood finish on the bottom, and I'm just using a gray spray primer to go over the Deft and just provide kind of a bonding coat for the acrylic paint that I'm going to put on top of this for the finished paint job. I just give it one good wet coat, wet enough to wet things out, but not so wet that it's running, and call that good. And I'll let this dry a day before I paint on top of it, at least a day. I'll just give you a quick view of the finished bird from a few different angles. And the primer is still wet, but it's always good to see the bird all one color. I look forward to priming the bird because it's the first time you see everything tied together as one piece, and really gives you a better overall impression of what the bird is looking like. So there's a little bit of a top view. Well, that's a wrap on the Spectacled Eider Drake decoy project. You may not be carving a spectacled eider now or anytime soon, but these videos will be available when you want to tackle the species. It's really an amazing bird, and like I said before, I've developed a new appreciation for the beauty of this bird by carving and then trying to paint it. I will follow up with some a short video of the completed painted bird with some reference shots from all sides, and that might be helpful as you tackle this project. Until next time, Tom Christie signing out. Thanks so much for tuning into my YouTube channel. I appreciate it.